Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be in the world. It's so good to see you here. We're going to go ahead and just do a walkthrough of this wonderful new report that we've had, how to ethically implement AI into your organization. And we look at it more specifically around operational aspects. There's a lot of different ways to use AI in your business or organization, but we're really talking about it for augmentation of our human capabilities or our human work as it might be. So let me go ahead and get the slides pulled up and we can get going. And that involves that, and then that involves that. It would work normally if we could. All right, we are really very fortunate to have an amazing group of research fellows who have helped us put together this wonderful Q3 research report that is onto how to ethically implement AI with Team Flow. And it wouldn't be possible without Jen McClure, first of all and foremost, who was the editor of this report and who shepherded all these wonderful contributions from these amazing people, including our senior research fellow, Dr. Jeff Vandenhout, who is actually the creator of the Team Flow model, and many other wonderful, wonderful people. Um, I'd really encourage you to read the full report on our blog, but we're going to be walking through most of that here and putting it into a more practical context. Um, and that first context to look at is the AI revolution itself and adding some context to it because it is rapidly being adopted and really from the founding, the sort of belief that we've had is that the decisions we make now on which AIs to use and how to use it will ripple across time because we're literally talking about a technology that replaces human capabilities. We're seeing now just this past week where Claude and GPT and Gemini are going to be able to take over your screen and actually do things for you. This is really the agentic component of it, where the AI will be an agent on your behalf doing tasks. Well, you can imagine all the different things that can happen with work that it can do for you. And so the question is, how are we going to augment ourselves instead of replace ourselves? And that's kind of the core of the ethical implementation that we're approaching. But there are a number of other opportunities inside of there as well. Of course, it enhances our efficiency, productivity, and it actually provides capabilities that were never before imaginable, given the resources and people we have. And really, that's one of the core ways we think you should be looking at ethically implementing AI is to explore the regions of those things that are perhaps previously impossible. And it really comes down to, in our view, how are you going to invest your AI dividend? Given all the efficiencies and the surplus of resources, time, and capabilities that you have, what are you going to do with it? It is a combination of financial and non-financial benefits that you'll gain from implementing and integrating AI. And what are you going to do with it? And it's a matter of that reinvestment. Is that reinvestment going into your people, or is that going into laying off people and putting more money into your profits? Certainly, that's what normally would happen, given the majority of businesses out there. But human-centric organizations will take a slightly different view, and those are the people we're trying to talk to. And if you're seeking to be human-centric organization, or if that's part of your core values, then this is especially going to be salient for you. The ethical crossroads that we face is about where are we going to invest that and from that time and what are we going to do differently, or what are we going to do net new, or who are we going to replace, and that's really those kind of questions we want to get into. So what we believe is that the pros of reinvestment and augmentation and the cons of workforce reduction and automation really leads us into a singular direction, which is to reinvest in our people. And what can we do to improve their skills, to help them grow, to improve their well-being, so that they can be more valuable contributors to the organization. By augmenting their capabilities with AI tools, we can actually increase their job satisfaction and engagement. So many of the challenges that leaders are reporting today about a drop in engagement from their staff, this might be one of the things that we can use to cure that challenge of decreasing engagement. But the real benefit of this is actually the long-term sustainability of the business. If we start reducing and getting rid of all of the people who actually know how things work, because they're the most expensive resources on the balance sheet, the cost that they have as opposed to the value that they bring, you're going to be sadly missing them in a few years ahead, when we realize that AI is not going to do everything on its own to the degree and skill that is needed to continue running your business as things continue to evolve, and that prior experience ends up being the heart of your future growth. By understanding customers and having those relationships, it may provide immediate cost savings and look good on the quarters, but that loss of institutional knowledge is severe. Um, and even approaching AI right now, as we're hearing from many people across the country and indeed around the world, is really hindering and harming culture, creating a fear and hindering their creativity. And of course, we've already heard the blowback of people who are just afraid that AI is coming for their jobs. And despite the trite sayings about AI isn't going to take your jobs, it's another human with AI who's going to take your job. That it's immaterial to the actual fear that people that feel inside, that is actually in itself already diminishing their productivity, which is, excuse me, which is why one of the key things we're looking for is how to have open conversations with our teams about AI integration and adopting this human-centric culture, so that we can actually show that what we're doing with AI is for our collective benefit, not just for the bottom line. And that's where we actually turn to what may seem like a sort of cute phrase, but uh, we really believe that this AI, for the first time in history, creates a unique opportunity to re-envision um, business as possible, to transcend business as usual. The problem with business as usual, of course, is we're doing the same things in the same way and still expecting different results. Famous little quote about the definition of crazy. But if we can actually get beyond the way we've been doing things, the way that is possible now because of AI will really unlock an incredible amount of value. But first, what we're saying is, if you just add AI into business as usual, you're not going to get the results that you're really looking for. We really need a stronger foundation, a stronger organizational culture upon which to integrate into. And so that's where we really believe that team flow is essential. And that's where we take the approach of augmenting the workforce instead of replacing it, and figuring out how to optimize the collaboration between the individuals on your team. And that is exactly what the team flow model does. And in fact, not only does that just do it for any project, and we'll get into that more in a minute, but we actually lay out here and in the worksheet that we're going to be sharing with participants, conversations for actions, how to go about doing this. And it's really not all that challenging. It's actually quite straightforward, and as you'll see here in a few minutes. Um, but that culture is the foundations for ethical AI implementations, and valuing our human assets. And actually, when we say that our people are our most valuable asset, meaning it is a really, really great place to start. And of course, people need to feel that. People need to feel the safety that comes from knowing that they're valued, that their humanity is valued, and that they're not just cogs in the machine. And that is a job of frontline managers, and that is a job of leadership to ensure that's communicated. But the other component about this in the culture is, are you actually capable of managing change effectively? Are you able to have an organization that communicates effectively, that actually is inclusive of the participants who are going to be affected by the change? And of course, leadership's role in all of this is to chart that clear course ahead and to continually communicate through this on what's happening and to ensure that everyone is clear and that there isn't a lot of uncertainty and fear, because that fear is really oftentimes hidden, sometimes not so hidden, impediment to the progress and growth of the business. Uh, well, the one thing with most of this technology revolutions, as we saw with digital transformation previously, and we're seeing once again with AI, the technology is really exciting, and the allure of it is incredible. But it's not just about the technology. In fact, it's even easy to say it's more about the people and how people will be affected and how people will change as a result of using these technologies and what processes might they implement differently. So we really want to emphasize that component here again. When we're saying human centric, we're talking about in everything, in particular with our mindset of how we're approaching it. But it comes down to actually those values being implemented through our change management and into how we use the technology as people, as opposed to technology for technology's sake. And what we're really talking about here is redefining our relationship with technology and making sure that everyone understands that that is a tool here to serve us and that it is not just something coming to replace us. Because as AI is continuing to make advancements, it will do things that make it seem human-like. And in fact, we're already seeing some lawsuits of people in relationships with AI chatbots who are now suing those companies. Unfortunately, in one case, for a suicide. And we really have to very consciously approach how we're implementing these technologies and how we're deploying them and how we're talking about them with our people. More reason for that open communications that is at the core of Team Flow itself. And in order to do that, as we've been talking about a great deal already, the first step is recognizing the human value. And particularly as we enter the next several years, this is not just a, next few months sort of transition. This is going to be going on for the next 5, 10, 15 years, even as the technology continues to advance. For those of us who are using AI technologies every day and using multiple AI technologies every day, it is a monthly versioning cycle of what the capabilities of the AI itself is. And so as I'm using it, I'm finding my own relationship with the tech evolving every couple of weeks. And that in itself is a lot of drag and energy. But taking that approach of understanding and really reinforcing, sorry, that we are augmenting our capabilities versus automating away the things that only humans can do is a really important part of the conversation. So when we're talking about the broader theme of this presentation, how to ethically implement AI, this is where we keep coming back to the clarity around what is AI's role and what is the human's role. And when we recognize the human value and we adopt this statement towards augmentation versus automation, we can get the employees involved more and we can erase some of their fears to show them what direction we're really looking to head. And in that way, open them up to encourage an experimental culture so that they can actually not be afraid to try things, but they're actually encouraged to try those things and share what they learn, share what benefits they glean from it when they do so. Um, and a really other big important part of this is actually ensuring equitable access and training to everyone who wants it and needs it. So really, this is what leads into a program for how do we get them to the correct tools so that they know what the right tools are and to get them access to those tools. How do we set up comprehensive training programs so they understand how to use them? And of course, those training programs need to have the ethical guidelines built into them so that people can understand the choices and the consequences. We should be addressing equity concerns in here. Now, that's a broader view of ours based on, the idea of encouraging co-ownership by encouraging this a holistic sense of unity that is necessary for teams to achieve their collective ambitions. And then ultimately, in a more tactile way, developing an AI governance framework And we have a little more advice on that in the Conversations for Actions guide that we'll be passing out, as well as in the actual paper itself. But really important that people understand what is okay and what is not, and that we have some leeway in enabling them to experiment such that they may push some of those guardrails a little bit in experimenting. And in that, find new ways of learning why something isn't possibly within our ethical guidelines and why something else is. But we can't have it such that there is a fear of consequences on them for experimenting and trying. We really need to encourage that fail-safe culture that is going to lead to the sort of innovation that we're looking for. Um, and I've mentioned this a few times, but I want to come back to Dr. Jeff Vandenhout's team flow model and really talk about why this is so important for us and why it's so important for me in bringing these two concepts together. At the heart of the model is collective ambition, a broader purpose, but it's more than that. It's this intrinsic motivating force to accomplish something together. And as we look at that, there are certain things that are within our control and certain things that we can sense that lets us know that we're doing well and are achieving a state of team flow. And that is broadly in the elements of direction, which is having an audacious common goal that is in support of that collective ambition, having our personal goals aligned with those team goals, and being able to express mutual commitments and fulfill them consistently with one another. We're also looking at elements of the culture, the positive and supportive work environment. How do we make it a safe climate? And we do that in part through those open communications that we talked about before, but we also make it such that we all know what each other is capable of, which is another element of actually sharing what we're learning with the AI and how to apply it, is understanding how do we integrate it with each other? How can we both use this AI in new ways together, such that the ethical framework is actually also encouraging that sharing of lessons learned, insights, and indeed setting up processes and protocols for doing that stuff. And then, of course, the task division itself, to have that skill challenge balance, and to be able to look at that together as a unique element of it. But let's go a little bit more specific and deeper to this, and look at these through how we apply it to AI more directly. Um, we believe that having that collective ambition in part is about having everyone understand what their role is in the AI journey, which is a really good reason for having them included in the planning and the implementation of it, at least to the point of being part of the feedback loop in terms of how things are working and how they're affected by it. Those audacious team goals, setting that challenging objective in how we're going to actually innovate with AI, is about pushing the boundaries of what's possible, about envisioning the previously impossible. The mutual commitment where team members are dedicated to supporting each other, to enhance their collaboration as they navigate AI. There is a commitment to that ethical AI charter that we're talking about, to that framework. And that's a really important part of it, that people see and feel that, and that they understand it is from the leadership as well as from the participants. Um, the other element is just checking in with people to make sure that they do understand what this is and that they see how their personal career objectives and goals are actually aligned with learning to use AI and implement it in their process. How can we actually make sure that connection is conscious in their mind and not just invisible on the side, because the consciousness of that is what will allow them to see their role inside of it and the alignment of what they're trying to achieve with what you're trying to achieve by implementing AI. And of course, one of the other things that's really important with AI usage is that there's a bunch of different tools and there's a bunch of different ways to use it. But the skills, experience, and wisdom that we bring to, particularly generative AI, drastically impacts the outputs that the AI will generate for us. So being able to understand who's good at what part of using an AI tool is another important component here of team flow itself, of actually understanding how we work together better as a team. And once again, as I continue to emphasize, open communication is the foundation of all of this. It's where we will get to psychological safety. It is where we will build trust. It is where everything else will follow and work afterwards. But it's also, again, important not just in the setting of intentions up front, but in the sharing of our lessons learned as we continue through the process and through the implementation. Um, so what do we do? Some simple stuff here we're going to move into for sharing as we start moving a little bit closer towards the end. I got a lot more still to go here, but to where we're looking at providing some practical advice for things that you should do as you're implementing AI. And gosh, I can't emphasize it enough about maintaining the opening dialogue, but it's really important as well as we move past that a little bit to talk about how the AI tools align with the shared goals of the team. How do they help us foster a sense of purpose and direction? And that's where actually determining how we're valuing it is so important up front, which is where the emphasis on human value itself, the value of human work, is so important, because by adopting that stance early in our AI journey, people are able to see that it's not something to fear, but it's something to learn and something for them to actually further what we're already doing. And of course, we always want to set ambitious objectives. The audacious team goal, or the big, hairy, audacious goal, as people sometimes say, because we want to stretch our limits and innovate together. Now, we might take some safe, smart goals at the beginning that are really easily measurable and actionable and all that other fun stuff, just to kind of get our feet wet. And hopefully, one of those first ones is the development of that ethical AI framework together. But we need to go way beyond that to see what is possible. And again, to encourage people to explore those edges on their own so that innovation can flow back to everyone else as we're doing this. And it's also why we encourage you to have ongoing dialogues about AI use, to encourage ownership and accountability for the ethical practices, and where we talk about why we're using it as much as how we're using it. And in that way, again, to tie their individual career objectives to their learning of AI makes it more explicit and makes it more intrinsic value for somebody to want to be able to learn, want to be able to push the boundaries, and want to be able to help other team members also learn those values. And I'm sorry, learn those processes through those values. A few more practical steps for leaders to help go in this stuff. We really, as we've said here again, foster open communications, ensure equitable access to the AI tools and resources, getting everyone opportunities to engage, make it a fail-safe environment so that people are encouraged to actually experiment, uh, aligning the AI implementation with the organization's purpose, finding that one thing that we could actually do that ties to the purpose and the mission of the organization is a great way to start. But of course, there are multiple ways we can actually implement it. And more broadly, again, as we come back to thinking about that AI dividend that we were talking about at the beginning, where are we going to be able to use this freed up time that we have? It's not that we're reducing our work loads from 100% to 60% and therefore laying off 40% of our people. It's about what do we do with that 40% that we could never have done previously because we didn't have that time. And one of those key elements of that AI dividend that we look at is a reinvestment in well-being and growth, the reinvestment in reflection, that we can actually reflect on how we've been doing things and how we could do things differently and better, not just as humans working with other humans, but how could we do things differently and better with AI now? And again, doing those things that we previously couldn't even imagine doing, there wasn't time to do, or it wasn't even possible, because the power of AI as a workforce multiplier is so incredibly strong. Um, so we lay this out as a lot of potential opportunities, and certainly it is transformational. But where it can really show up is our broader organizational intelligence, our collective intelligence, really, and how that can be improved. And that gets into a lot more deeper, specific tactical uses of AI that we're not going to get into today, but it's a really important benefit that we can get smarter as a team, as an organization. And as I was just mentioning about the reinvestment of that AI dividend, the employee well-being can be on the rise. This doesn't need to be a stressful time where people are worried about their their jobs. The other reason for hosting these conversations about an ethical AI implementation at your organization and how we're going to use it, and valuing human work and transcending business as usual to create business as possible, that leads to greater employee well-being. And of course, with that time, we have new opportunities for problem solving. That time we're able to invest in actually figuring out why something isn't working as best as it could be, and actually having conversations about that and doing work towards actually solving for it. And ultimately, at the end of the day, all of this stacks up to creating a greater competitive advantage for the organization. And that competitive advantage is the real thing that you get from taking this ethical AI implementation approach, because we're looking at retaining the majority of our employees and their wisdom and experience and skills, up leveling them as individual contributors, up leveling them as teams. We make the organization as a whole more competitive with more innovative solutions, with more individual agency, with a greater culture. And that greater culture transforms into greater relationships with the market, transforms into being an employer of choice, transforms into actually getting ahead of your competitors. And that is really one of the most important things. And it's a little far out from the initial impacts that it'll make from doing it. But it's a really important one that is part of our long-term thinking instead of the short-term thinking that would dominate decisions leading to cutting headcount next quarter because we can add an AI in to do some of the work. Instead, when we reinvest in our people, we're actually gaining market traction. We're able to, more importantly, create more momentum for what we're doing in the market to do greater things faster than ever before. To further on what we've said, and really I can't emphasize enough the importance of reading the report. I've only given you a small snapshot of all the value that's inside of that. So definitely want you to go back and read that full report. But also everyone who attends, we have developed a free guide for conversations for actions, a whole bunch of questions in a guide format that you can use to host conversations with your team. But the simple first steps again is establish an AI ethics committee. Of course, there's some politics involved in that likely for you, and other issues of who has the authority and elsewhere. Well, hopefully it's you who have the authority. And if not, I suggest you read a book called Leading Without Authority by Keith Ferrazzi that'll tell you how you can do it anyways. Or else maybe you're a change agent. And so you're just going to lead this up and go ahead and do it because it needs to be done, and then find the people who show up. But of course, chief innovation officers, operation COOs, presidents, and other operational leaders are some of the people who might just go ahead and take this on and socialize it and get cross-functional input and collaboration on it. Out of that committee and that conversation that you're facilitating, to develop an ethical AI usage charter, to actually build a plan for ethical AI training. And then really coming back to, again, the core of our message is that, in order to transcend business as usual and envision business as possible, you really need to figure out how to work better together as a team. You need to improve your capabilities around human work and human teamwork, more importantly. And the highest optimal state of that, in my view of decades of researching this matter, is actually in the team flow model itself. I'm not going to get into all of that here today. That's not the core of today's presentation. We have a ton of other materials available, webinars and what have you, on our teamflow.institute website, as well as across the web, and a bunch of other great videos and information that's out there. But the team flow assessment is a really quick, effective way to understand how well are we working together as a team. Are we getting close to achieving a peak state of performance together, or are we struggling in certain ways? And of course, by investigating and using that AI dividend for reflection, doing a team flow assessment could become a regular sort of view, but it gives you the opportunity to find small little places where you can make small improvements that lead to massive change in terms of the cultural dynamics and the relationships between your employees and your staff and your contributors and your broader ecosystem and everyone, because we're talking about methods that increase trust, that increases unity, that creates a more holistic view on what the work is that that we're doing together, and gives us all those things we need to transcend business as usual and envision and implement business as possible, which we really can't emphasize enough is essential to do as you start looking at implementing AI into your organization, because it's the foundation upon which you will really be able to seize on the AI dividend and gain that competitive advantage we talk about in the long term. So, we encourage you to use this Conversations for Actions handout that we have as a guide. We really encourage you to dive deeper into this topic by reading the full white paper. It takes about 15 minutes. It's a really wealth of information from some amazing people who I'm so blessed to have joined us on this journey at the Team Flow Institute as our research fellows. And the other element here, of course, is if you are struggling on your own how to do it, well, that's part of what we can do with and for you. And there's all different ways that we might come in and help you, from doing a simple team flow assessment, which we can actually perform online in 90 minutes for under $500, or actually guiding this conversation for action to help you establish that ethical AI framework. Or just to go ahead and address the broader change management that might still be needed to complete your digital transformation from a few years ago, that might have been a little more focused on technology than it was on the people. And what can we do to actually bring that up to speed and get you into a place where you can really seize the advantages offered by artificial intelligence without suffering through some of the potential downfalls or consequences, and certainly dispelling the fear that is now inhibiting the progress that could be made from people who are scared that AI is coming for their jobs, because we haven't expressly said that we're using AI to augment what we're doing instead of replace people.